here. Well, we're here with you. We're not here with each other today because we live far away. Well, it's a thing. We're in different cities, but here we are. So it's been a long day for me. So I'm glad Holly's here to help me say things well, because that is today. So we are here talking about allergies, celiac, gluten, food, dairy, all the works. Really, is there hope? Are you stuck with it forever? Once you have an allergy, are you stuck with, like most people, where you're actually getting more and more allergies added on in foods you can't eat? Or is there a way to change that and reverse that? So we are going to talk about that today. We're glad to have you on. A few housekeeping things about YouTube where you're watching this. You can type in comments that come to us. It's a 15-second delay, so be patient. And we know that, so we'll chat and hem and haw for a little bit to wait for your comments to come. Or if you have questions like at the end. But if you don't have to have a YouTube account to leave a comment. It's just a Google account. So you can sign in with Google and then you can leave a comment and that will show up in the stream for people right now and for us to see and answer, but also for people to see later, which is very helpful. Please like this video. That's what YouTube's algorithm right now for getting it out to more people is actually likes. Subscribe if you haven't, and that's helpful to know when we're going to do another class, which we do a couple a month usually. So that's helpful, and we're hoping to start uploading more soon, so you don't want to miss out when that happens. So those are the two housekeeping things. Definitely ask questions. They sit here, and we can answer them when it fits in, or right away if it fits in right then. So that is all. I'm AMY MIHALY, founder of Be Well Clinic, and I am excited to be doing this and talking with you guys, and I'm excited to introduce Holly and have her here as well. So I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, so I'm Holly Bigham, and I am the other practitioner with Be Well Clinic. So I do most of the nutritional therapy, GAPS therapy, GAPS counseling, all of the nutrition, family counseling kind of stuff with Be Well.
Yeah. We are both GAPS practitioners, which stands for Gut and Physiology Syndrome, and Gut and Psychology Syndrome, which is the gut-brain connection and the gut-body connection. So if you have problems in the gut, you're going to have problems with other things. And that's actually exactly what we want to start with, because to understand what's happening with allergies and how to reverse and fix them, we really have to understand what's going on. So Holly is going to start with describing that process.
Yeah. So, leaky gut, I was actually listening to somebody talk about this a couple days ago, and they were talking about how leaky gut, if you talked about it 5 years ago, people thought you were crazy, which we did talk about it 5 years ago, right? So we were lumped in that group.
People thought we were crazy. It was a thing.
And well, that's not really a thing, right? That's just something that, it just kind of a catch-all, or if you don't really know what else to do with it, you lump it into leaky gut, or there's not really research on that. Is there? Can you even prove that? Well, yes, we can. There's research, there's tons of research, and not only in the more naturopathic side of healthcare, but also on the modern Western medicine side of healthcare. So there's so much research that's going on, research that has shown leaky gut, actually visualizing leaky gut and what it looks like and what it does in the body. And there's so much more research being done right now too. So it's a really cool time to be talking about leaky gut, because still a lot of people don't necessarily know about it, but I think it's becoming more accepted, where people are like, oh, that actually makes so much sense. So I love talking about this. So leaky gut is, I have to put my cup down and use my hands. I'm Italian. So leaky gut is exactly what it sounds like. The gut lining, which is basically our intestines, is supposed to be really cohesive and tight lining. We're supposed to be able to eat food. It goes through down our esophagus. We chew it up really well. It goes down our esophagus, into our stomach, gets more processed, goes into our intestines, goes through how it should be. It gets digested even and broken down even more. The nutrients come out of it and are utilized by our body. And then it keeps going and winds up in the toilet. That's how food is supposed to go through our bodies. The issue is with leaky gut. So when somebody has a leaky gut or intestinal permeability or anything else kind of like that, holes in the gut, basically, what happens is instead of your gut lining, let's see, what's a better way? Like that, it's like this. So there's holes actually in it. And it's literal holes, and food, instead of just passing straight across or through the intestines, it actually goes through the holes into the bloodstream. And that's super dangerous because the bloodstream is not supposed to have undigested particles in it. Our blood is basically supposed to be sterile. It's supposed to be an avenue for carrying nutrients and oxygen, and the bloodstream is just supposed to be carrying the things that it's supposed to have, not undigested pieces of food or large different molecules of different things, including bacteria or anything like that. So when things go through the gut lining into the bloodstream that aren't supposed to be there, then we have a whole bunch of reactions that turn into allergic reactions, whether it's kind of what you think of with an allergy, like say a peanut allergy or something like that, where somebody might have their throat closing up. It can result in rashes, sinus issues, really any reaction that the body has, really any reaction. It can even result, because of like with undigested food going through, it can even result in mental health issues. So that's where the gut and psychology side of things comes into play. It can result in even any kind of autoimmune things like type 1 diabetes or anything like that. So what we're talking about specifically today is food allergies, things like celiac or Crohn's or the gluten intolerance, any kind of more gut things associated with this. So the issue lies when the gut lining, instead of being like this, is like this, and you have the large particles going through that shouldn't be going through at all. And so not only do you have foreign objects going through the bloodstream that shouldn't be there, but you also aren't digesting your food, so you're not getting the nutrients that your body actually needs in order to live and thrive. So it's kind of this double-edged issue going on. So the reason why our body goes like this instead of like this is due to a couple different things. So mostly it is so basically what keeps everything nicely together like this is when we have really strong, healthy cells that are called enterocytes. Enterocytes are the cells. Amy, you got something for me? So,
they're lining.
Yes. Okay. So these are the villi. These are the what is lining all of our intestines. And this is supposed to be there. This is where the little cells live that keep everything nice, closely together. Thanks, Amy. So that there's no leaky holes. So the problem is when something comes in that damages okay, there. Yeah, you can show it. So this is a happy, healthy enterocyte. This is the happy cell that's supposed to be on all those villi that you saw going up, that Amy was showing in the last picture. So when they're happy, they look like this. They have those awesome hairs sticking up, and they're plump, and they're actually functioning the way they should be. So when they're functioning, they are keeping all the they're keeping the lining of the gut intact, basically. When they get sick, they are no longer able to function. This is a sick enterocyte. There's a very clear picture of a healthy and a sick, the difference there. So when they're sick, they don't have those really nice, beautiful hair-like things coming off of them. And they can no longer do their job of keeping the intestines nicely sealed. then everything basically kind of starts to slip, and they go like this because they're not right next to each other in a beautiful like army formation doing what they should be doing. They're more just kind of sagging, leaky, letting things go through. So the things that are actually affecting them negatively and causing them to be ill or not functioning well are primarily toxins that are either ingested, so something that is not actual food, something that we are eating that has been created in a lab, chemicals, that kind of thing. Also anything that we are exposed to that is also a chemical or something that's man-made, something that's not supposed to really be on our bodies. So that can also be anything that we put on us, like lotions or creams or any or shampoos or things that are more toxic to our bodies. It can also be shoot, I lost my train of thought. Really, anything that's
toxins from the flora itself is the other.
Right, thank you. That's where I was going. So the other thing is when we have healthy, so inside our gut, we have bacteria, microbes, viruses, parasites. We have all these different things that are supposed to be inside. And they're supposed to be living together in a healthy balance and all kind of working with each other to keep our bodies healthy. Now, when the bacteria in our gut is not healthy, it actually produces toxins itself. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something that we've taken in. It can even be the bacteria that's in our gut that's not healthy, causing those toxins. So any of those toxins can be released, damage the enterocytes, damage the gut lining, and then causing all of the repercussions that we talked about before.
I actually have this a lot because we see people who have done great with their diet and avoided processed foods and chemicals, and they still have issues. So we talk about this question a lot, and research shows that often 90% of the toxins in our bloodstream, meaning they've gotten through that leaky gut, are from our own flora. So really the imbalance of flora is key here. And so that's why you're like, I've eaten well, why is this still bad? If your flora is off, you're going to have toxins and it's just going to keep getting worse. So that's the answer to that. Why I don't eat red dye number 5. Why is this happening? So that really helped me understand and has helped a lot of people understand it's not that you're doing something wrong or something's inherently broken that can't be fixed, right? There's still something wrong that we can fix.
Yeah. And I get that a lot with kids too, because parents are like, well, I'm only breastfeeding my baby, or they started on baby GAPS, or they have only had, the purest foods. I don't use lotions or whatever on them, and still they're having rashes or still they're having issues. And so that's what I'm attributing it to as well. Basically, there's something going on inside. We just need to, we need to build up, we need to heal the bacteria that's in there. We need to build up the more beneficial bacteria so that we can, cause the release of toxins that's just going on constantly in our gut to be stopped.
And to further say on what you're saying there, we're not killing bad, right? Our focus is to build up the good.
Right.
Really killing things is it's not the answer. Every once in a while, you kind of need to mow the lawn, I guess, pull the weeds. But really, why is the grass not growing well? What's wrong with your soil that the weeds can survive in where your grass can't? So this is where we start looking at what do we do and what do we bring in to support, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I'm jumping ahead, but is a good place to insert it, as this is not about killing the bad, because you will just have to keep killing it. You need to make the good robust the good. I've made it a verb. You need to robust the good so that it is crowding out and bringing into balance the flora that is creating toxins for you. There's also things called, what are they called? They're microbes that go either way, whoever's boss. So if the body is in a healthy state, they will actually produce vitamins and minerals for you and help with digestion. If the body's in an unhealthy state, they actually will produce toxin, the very same microbe. And so there's a whole slew, maybe 70 or 80% often of your microbes. You don't have to switch them over. You just have to fix who's in charge. And then you get this huge shift into productive microbes instead of toxin-producing microbes.
Yeah, because I really don't see anything as accidental or it just happens to be there. My body went haywire. I feel like I hear that a lot, and that's not the case. There's reasons for even the bacteria that are causing issues. There's reasons for them to be there. There's there's things that we can do to affect, to make the one side stronger, like Amy was saying, the one side stronger, to get all the opportunistic to move from those more pathogenic and toward the more beneficial. But even things like the other microbes that are in there, viruses are there for a reason. They're there for cleansing. They're there to help out with healing. They're there for a reason. Parasites also there for a reason. So we really are not we're not trying to kill things. Like Amy said, that's pretty much sure. I guess there's probably some scenarios where therapeutically, to give your body a break or something like that, maybe there would be a situation in which you would just need to kind of, all right, let's just settle things down and start over. But for the most part, we really are just supporting our bodies. The goal of this, to heal a leaky gut, is to support your body in the way that we know how to bring the junctions back together and to grow the bacteria and to grow those enterocytes back to being healthy again, so everything stays in place. So that's really what we're talking about. How can we pro and help our bodies, not quench what's causing harm right now.
Which that brings up the point of, there's two things that eating fake foods does for us, right? It doesn't feed our bodies well, and it poisons the enterocytes and the flora. And then it also encourages toxins around so that we get more of the flora that help with detoxing, like Candida. I've talked about that in other talks. Candida is there to remove heavy metals. Yeast and parasites are there to clean up trash. When you have a lot of just gunk in your body and in your gut, you're going to have overgrowth of these microbes. They're there on purpose, but they also make the toxins worse. So then you start getting in that downward spiral. So changing food really does two things. It helps feed your organs so that you can get toxins out better and seal the lining, right? It fixes structurally, but it also feeds the things you want and allows for the good, again, I don't like good and bad flora, but that flora that is there, the stuff we like more, right? The stuff with less side effects from doing their job. We want that to be larger in quantities and colonies. And so doing good food does two things. It heals physically your body structures, but it also helps the flora be stronger to maintain the body structures. And that's why GAPS is such a powerful program, because you're doing both. You're not just focusing on one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just as a side note along with that, I think that food has become such a hobby and a pastime and a emotional release, rather than food being the purpose of food, actually nourishing our bodies, being good for our bodies, supporting our bodies, which is what it was originally for. So that's something that Amy and I are super passionate about. Just, with making really good food, making it delicious, because it's supposed to be colorful and delicious and like a wonderful experience. But also we're eating to nourish and support our bodies. We're not eating just because we're bored or because we are, sad or happy or whatever, so it can be a celebration, can be wonderful, but I think that's a big key with helping people understand. And you can do that. You don't have to. A lot of people with unhealthy gut bacteria balance, you actually want to eat more. You want more snacks. You feel like you're always hungry. You don't feel well satiated. But as you have a healthy gut and you're eating the foods that are actually supporting your gut, you will feel satiated well. You'll feel satisfied and feel like you can actually have other hobbies and other interests and enjoy life in so many other ways too. So
very, very true. Okay. Should I move on to the liver part of it, or
go for it?
More on the gut. Okay, so the next part, after we know, okay, where did it break down? We have flora getting fed wrong things and toxins, so it shifts, then it's not doing its job of taking care, and stuff gets in. Okay, so when things get into the bloodstream, what happens? They overwhelm the body in a downstream effect. So instead of being taken care and broken down, and one of the coolest things I learned from Dr. Natasha is this, so hard it's backwards, this guy, this microvilli, they absorb food in, and the cell actually analyzes every single thing coming into the body and deciding if it's allowed to be in the bloodstream or not. So it's not just a physical barrier. There's an intelligence happening in these cells. And this poor guy, of course, cannot do that job properly. He is going to let, it's fine, go on through, which is actually a safety mechanism for our body, because if we kept out, or if we only absorbed food that this guy could handle, we would all starve to death. Right? And so it is good that food gets in undigested to keep us alive, but somewhere downstream they have to deal with it, and they weren't made to deal with it. So now we have to have enzymes places that are not in the gut, and they have to work really hard, and other problems too. But so that was really cool to understand. It's not just about sealing the lining, which there are medications that will zip the little holes shut, as I was taught in a drug rep dinner, But are they helping the cells be healthier? Probably not. I don't know. I didn't know enough to ask that question when I first heard it, but probably not. So what do we need to do? We need to feed them so they can do their job, not just create a barrier to have a physical barrier. Okay, sorry, off track. So when we get into the body and the particles are in, whether they are undigested food particles or they are toxins. Toxins are going to go... Let me back up. There are lots of definitions of toxins. My working definition generally is anything not helpful to the body at this time or in the state that it's in. So an undigested food particle, and a real food, not a toxin fake thing, if it is in the wrong place, is a toxin to that part of the body. So I'm just going to refer to toxins, but that could mean undigested food particles, right? But for simplicity. So those toxins and undigested food particles go to the body and go different places. Certain ones will have an affinity for certain tissue, like they go to the joints, or they go to the nervous system, or they go to the lungs. And if you have a whole bunch going somewhere, you're going to get symptoms in that organ. But the first thing that is in the way after the food is absorbed, after things get absorbed in through the gut, the first place that the blood goes is the liver, essentially. The liver, there's something called a first pass effect. And this is a description that we use in terms of medication. If you take an oral medication, you have to take a much higher dose than if you do IV, because we know, we've studied, if once you absorb that in, it goes to the liver, and the liver will remove a significant amount of that medication for the first pass. The first time that liver filters the blood from the gut, coming from the gut. So the liver is going to be this screening barrier between the rest of your body and the stuff getting in through your gut that shouldn't be getting there. Which means if you do this a lot, or it's been a while, or there's a lot of holes in your gut, you are going to have a very tired and overwhelmed liver pretty fast. Most of the symptoms that we see, Holly and I see, and other GAPS practitioners, is this, a liver symptom. The liver's always tired. The poor things are always tired. When the livers get tired, what kind of symptoms do we get? Liver symptoms specifically are irritation, hot flashes, skin rashes. Help me with this list here, Holly. I wrote a little acronym or whatever of skin, sleep, and sass. So you get really irritated and sassy. You're quick to your temper. Kids are just quick to lash out, be grumpy, be inflexible. And adults too, but we just hide it a little bit better sometimes. Sleep issues. So the liver cleanses overnight. So when it is not doing well, it will often wake you up, cause lighter sleep, cause nightmares or bad dreams or night terrors, cause leg cramps, cause restless leg, cause, upset stomach, nausea. If it's just full and it's like, please don't give us any more food, it will give you the signal of nausea to keep you from eating because it's just so far behind. It doesn't mean your body doesn't need food. It probably really needs food, but what you're giving it or what it can handle is so much less. So it's this balancing game. It's not a great place to be because you're ultimately, again, going to spiral downwards because you have less and less nutrition to fix the things that are wrong, unless you get the right foods that your body can handle, which is what GAPS and healing foods do, which Holly's going to talk about next. Skin, if the liver gets overwhelmed, the skin is a large detox organ. So the liver will push things or tell things, send it through the bloodstream to push it out through the skin. So any kind of rashes, any kind of red little liver spots, any kind of anything is a liver symptom. Skin is a liver symptom always. Acne is a liver symptom. Eczema is a liver symptom. Where the toxins are coming from are specific. Eczema is usually a candida toxin. But again, the liver is overwhelmed and it pushes it out through the skin and you get a skin issue or a liver symptom. So for most people, leaky gut is very synonymous with liver symptoms that I just described, right? Because that happens so fast. That's the next thing that breaks. And then we start getting two things. We have an overwhelm of skin and lung and sometimes kidney because those are the backup detox organs or proper, but those are other detox organs and they take on more load. And then we start getting symptoms of toxins building up in other tissues. You start getting thyroid issues, brain fog. I blanked on everything else that exists. Joint pain, again, sleeplessness. So you then sometimes get those other symptoms that are happening. So one of the things, going back to, okay, so period. Next thing, one of the things when we look at the liver, a lot of people in the health world are talking about very specific issues about allergies or reactions to histamine, oxalates, salicylates, or foods, right? So what we want to talk about next is what is that? What's going on? So if you have a salicylate sensitivity or a oxalate sensitivity, shouldn't you just avoid oxalates, right? And so we're gonna address kind of what's going on there. Same with histamine. I want to go on histamine because it's a lot clearer. The process is a lot simpler to do, but the same process type happens with oxalates and salicylates. The liver is supposed to break down histamine. If you have a liver that's overwhelmed with its jobs, you will have too much histamine in your body and in your bloodstream, and it will continue to circulate and cause histamine problems, swelling, fluid retention, itchy, runny, all the things that you get with allergies, right? The problem is not the histamine. The problem is your liver is tired. And so what the good news is when we have histamine issues, salicylate, oxalate, or literally any food, the reason why it's not okay for you is because your liver is tired. Not because that is an inherently bad food. So what we do is help the liver, and then you get to be okay. We're going to talk about celiac here in a second because that has an autoimmune component that happens also at the gut lining itself. And we can talk about the connection with thyroid for a second too. So that's something that's it's pretty common for people. But celiac, allergies, food allergies, intolerances to histamine, salicylates, oxalates, all that kind of stuff. It is a gut issue. It is an allergy in terms of something's getting in for your body to react to. But number one, if the gut lining was sealed, nothing would be getting into your bloodstream, so you wouldn't react in the first place. And number two, if your liver was strong enough, it could process that histamine and the toxin and get them out so that you still don't feel symptoms. So the only time you're feeling symptoms from foods that you are, quote, allergic or intolerant to, right, that grouping, what's happening is that you have a leaky gut with an overwhelmed liver. But the good news is we can reverse both of those things. We can feed and repair and aid and assist. And I just get so caring to people's livers and guts because it's such a big wear and deal. So, okay, I'm getting off on a tangent, but that's kind of the big thing. So with liver, the first step to stop overwhelming your liver is to stop putting fake things or eating fake things, which a lot of people have already done, right? Second step is get your gut flora sealed and your gut your gut lining sealed and your gut flora healed, repaired, re-established in a normal, healthy gut flora. And then with time, you will find that you start getting tolerant. Some people are much faster than others, but that is kind of the basic structure.
Mm-hmm. And this is where I think a lot of other adjunct therapies also help. We do, whether it's, coming from a nutritional background, this is definitely where I see I think it just is where the primary goal should be, right? Because you can do all the adjunct therapies in the world, and if you're still not eating what your body needs, if you're still bringing in things, if you're not eating the stocks and the ferments and those kind of things that we'll get into, you're not going to have healing. However, there's other things like Bonnie Eason was talking about, and with there's correlations also with the primary or primitive reflexes, and I know with chiropractics, and there's so many other things that we can also introduce that will help the vagus nerve and everything kind of align so that this can be more effective. This is definitely the place to start as far as nutrition goes. But I've been seeing more and more, I think, that I really enjoy even homeopathy, like so many other things, bringing in ways to support the body as it's healing through nutrition. So
yeah, exactly.
He was talking a lot about that too, because we have a good network of people that we really enjoy working with and having our patients work with. So.
And then the more closely what you think of maybe first as an adjunct, not other disciplines, which are incredibly helpful, but even liver support, liver cleansing, right? People ask about that. Well, shouldn't I just do a cleanse? Shouldn't I just do some herbs, dandelion root tea? And those are all beautiful. But remember that, one, if you keep the flow of toxins up, your liver is just going to stay as overwhelmed, and it will eventually poop out. You eventually will not get a response. You won't be able to stimulate it to work harder, because that's what herbs do. You're like, hey, can you just a little bit more do this? And it helps, and there's some nutrition, but nutrition is key. And if you don't feed your liver, you're just asking a poor limping liver to do more work with the herbs, as opposed to feeding it and then helping it do it and reducing its workload in the meantime. That's really where you're going to get the biggest effect and the safest, longest term effect, for sure. Okay, let me talk about celiac for a second. So celiac, as far as I understand, I am not the studied expert, but this is what I feel like I understand from looking at this in this lens, right? There are genetic predispositions to celiac disease. We can find them. I am a big believer in epigenetics. I don't know if there's anything that we'll discover cannot be altered or expressed differently or more effectively when you have a different nutritional status. So it's true in so many things, even things that I was very sure are very solid. It's amazing me. The more research I do, I'm pretty convinced that 90 to 99% of things will probably be in how your body functions in things that are a problem. Maybe a problem, could not be a problem if you had different diet or other support. So that being said, celiac, there's a genetic correlation in some aspect, right? I don't think that means you have to be stuck with a disease that is harming your body. Because ultimately, celiac is an autoimmune disease. Autoimmunity only happens when there's lots of inflammation and broken cells. So you may never be able to tolerate American gluten, which most people shouldn't eat anyway, but you should be able to XYZ. Eat sourdough bread that's well fermented, or have some contamination and not get 48 hours of zapping nervous system symptoms because someone cut a peanut butter and jelly sandwich 2 tables down from you, right? Some people are extremely sensitive, and that is not a healthy state of the body, right? That is not a genetic expression. That is something is off, and we can do more. There's a few things that we look at, and I've talked about PMGs on a lot of different talks, but PMGs help with any autoimmune component. So celiac, what I feel like it is in simplicity is you have a genetic predisposition to something, you have exposure to wheat, American gluten usually, which is very caustic to your body. That gets in, it tears open the gut, because that's what unsoaked wheat does. It tears open the gut, gets in, your body gets activated, it's more hypersensitive or something, to this celiac or the gluten molecule. It starts attacking it. It starts attacking other things. It attacks the gluten maybe absorbed in your gut lining. It attacks the cells that are damaged, and it probably attacks your thyroid, because gluten molecule and thyroid molecules are very similar in their look. This is a problem, right? But again, the same the same train of events happened. You had a leaky gut, you ate foods that were not helpful to your body, you didn't have enough nutrition or strength to heal and digest and do all those things, and then we started the sequelae. You just responded really strong because you have the genetic predisposition to something, a reaction. How we can reverse that is heal and seal the gut lining. Avoid gluten, of course, right now. You may have it in small amounts or completely. I currently know one person who has a very severe celiac reaction who can tolerate homemade, well-fermented sourdough bread now, occasionally, right? So it's a change. So that means it's not just genetic. That means it's supportable, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have the PMGs. The PMGs can come in and help your immune system calm down about the things that it's attacking so that you can heal them faster. Because you're saying, I'm going to take over healing. Thank you so much for your help. I'm going to take over eating better foods, the right foods to heal up, avoiding the foods that are a problem for the period of time. And you can use the PMGs to kind of make that process happen faster and then get that healed and sealed, which you have to maintain to keep from having symptoms. That's just the reality of our bodies. You have to have a sealed gut to not have symptoms of allergies or things like that. Okay. Anything else on the, let's get to the good news of how to fix it. Anything else on the problems that we should talk about before
Well, I was going to just talk about also, I have had a lot of people talking about mast cell activation syndrome lately. And Amy, I don't know how much research you've done into that. I mean, I've, looked basically into that. And honestly, it looks, because it seems like in the last couple of weeks, I've had so many people asking me about that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because which is basically mast cell activation syndrome. It's basically when you have this widespread inflammatory response, like just a huge immune response throughout your body. Mm-hmm. And it's a syndrome, right? That's what they're calling it now. And so it's basically a group of symptoms that are kind of like, what do we do with this group of symptoms? We're seeing it in so many people. Let's give it a name. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what it's coming out as. So it seems like it's become almost like a histamine intolerance. Like it's become a big name lately. Yeah. And again, I just keep coming back to, this is your body, kind of like how you were saying, Amy, how, if you are having a reaction to gluten, your body will also react to the gluten that's in all the different places, right? Like it's been absorbed in different tissues. It looks similar to your thyroid. And it seems like to me, that's what I'm finding with mast cell activation. As far as what I've been researching a little bit, just to, so it's not necessarily a disease. It's not necessarily something new that's going on, something that we need to, they're probably going to come up with medications or something for it, but it doesn't have to be, this isn't something that we need to quick start on steroids, quick start on something because there's a major disturbance in my body. No, this has been going on for a long time. This is a leaky gut situation. This is an overwhelmed liver situation. And really it's all the same principles with that as well. So lots of these kind of overwhelming, your body being overwhelmed kind of syndromes that I'm hearing about a lot right now are all that I can find is it's back to the basics. It's back to the basic of the gut. I heard someone else recently talking about how they think that everything, they said the doctors of the future are going to look at the gut. That was so funny. I was like, what about everyone in the past? Like where medicine started, where healthcare started, what we're seeing now, but no, it's the doctors of the future who are going to be looking at the gut. But anyway, regardless of who it is, all of these things. And then what you were saying with epigenetics, I just love that. I think it gives so much hope. The fact that we can change, we can affect what has been passed down to us, because I've heard so many patients being really just discouraged. Yeah, discouraged. And that's the course of my life has been written for me. And no, like epigenetics is real, and we are seeing it changing. Like, how you were saying with this individual who can actually eat sourdough and they're not having symptoms from it. It's amazing. So anyway, throwing that out there, we can move on to all the good stuff now.
Yes. So what are the things? So we've identified 3 major problems, kind of, we'll say: toxins, gut flora, and the lining is holy, right? Those are really the 3 things we have to address. So what are the ways that we do that?
Yeah. So, like we said, nutritionally. So there's a few different things actually that I want to bring up. So there's the nutrition aspect, and that is the main aspect, and we're going to go into that. There's also several other aspects like stress, like exposures, all of those kind of things that are so important as well. So I'm not going to spend time much on those right now because I want to get into the nutritional thing, but maybe we'll kind of circle around to those if we have time later on. So, but nutritionally, based on Dr. Natasha's work with the GAPS diet, she did so much work looking to see what foods are necessary to heal. So not only are we doing, I think people are afraid of elimination diets. Understandably, they're hard. They're hard to do. And they take a long time, and sometimes it's just a shot in the dark, right? Like, well, maybe it's this. I'm going to take this out of my diet for a month and see what happens. Mm-hmm. But with GAPS, it is both taking out offenders, but very intentionally putting in foods that are going to heal. So the foods that we know to be the most healing for the gut lining are meat stocks, the collagen, the gelatin that's in there, the amino acids that are in there. So meat stock that's homemade, only homemade, nothing from the store, nothing that's been pasteurized or had anything killed off. That's been cooked with a slow cook time just to release the healing aspects that we need for the gut lining. That is just soothing, easily digestible, easily utilized by our body, and will help to seal the wall back up again. And then the next level of that is really feeding the bacteria. So we're sealing, and then we're healing the bacteria, and strengthening the beneficial bacteria that we really want to be really strong, so that all those opportunistic bacteria come and join them. So that's through fermented foods, probiotic fermented foods. So those are the 2 main core bases of the GAPS diet. Amy, do you want to go through the different stages? I mean, I think we have a lot of that. I don't think we have to go through everything.
Yeah, we have that. The only thing I would add to animal fat is huge in terms of some building blocks as well. It's not as specific, like Holly was saying, the amino acids and collagen as terms of specific building blocks, although butyrate, which is in butter, grass-fed butter, is really helpful for that. But for the cells, we do have a phospholipid membrane. So if you don't have enough cholesterol in your body, most people are cholesterol deficient. I know that's a shock to anyone who has not heard me say this a million times before, but cholesterol deficiency is the rampant disease in our country, in our culture, Western world, because we're so afraid of fat. And there's videos on that. Go find them. We have some on our channel. But cholesterol is in the lipid membrane. So every time you want to reproduce a cell, you need cholesterol molecules to do that. Every time you want to make certain hormones, especially any sex hormones, so progesterone, cortisol, androgens, progesterones, estrogens, those are all basis of cholesterol as a molecule. So animal fat, meat stock, and fermented foods are really those 3 pillars that feed the flora, heal the gut, feed the body, and help to detox. Because feeding the flora, part of it is feeding it and supporting it, right? But part of it is actually removing the things that are killing it. And that is the other thing that we are working on in stages as you go. We do have stuff. So on our website, bewellclinic.net, you can go to GAPS diet. It's on the, I don't know which side for you, but on the right-hand side, there is a whole thing. Baby GAPS is at the bottom. So if you want to give your kid a good start, and Holly did a great video on that a couple months ago. But then there's all the stages and full GAPS and recipes that we have linked to it and all that. So look into that. We have YouTube videos, at least one, I think maybe two on GAPS diet that I've recorded in the last year or so. So look at that. Basically, you're walking through stages of how is my body? What foods does it need now? Okay, now it's a little healed. Now my body's here. What foods does it need now? Okay, now we're here. What foods does it need now? So you get a little bit more complicated foods. You start feeding and cleansing a little bit more instead of just feeding at the beginning as your body is able to heal and handle this. But the whole process, GAPS diet is what everyone calls it. The true name is actually GAPS Healing Nutritional Protocol, which I think is a beautiful name to really describe. It's not just about the food. It's the protocol of bringing your body into a healing place. And food is a huge part of it, of course. So that would be what I'd say with that. So food, we're feeding, and we're feeding to cleanse, right? We're feeding our liver, and now it can cleanse more. We're feeding our flora. We're feeding our lining so it can seal, right? So we're doing all that. Okay, next thing you're going to say. I think detoxing is where you were going next.
Okay.
No, you were talking about the flora, supporting the flora and changing it over.
Yeah, so I was just saying about the probiotic. Sorry, I can't tell for first in here.
There you go. I can hear you now.
Okay, so yeah, so as far as flora goes, the ferments, and these again are home fermented foods specifically, which if you haven't fermented before, it's super easy. And I did not know that before I got into the GAPS diet, and I was always terrified thinking I was going to kill my family, and we're all super healthy right now. You can do it. So that's another aspect of actually just building up. As far as detox kind of things, and there's so many ways, right? There's so many different forms of detox, but basically what we are, as we're on the elimination or in the beginning phases of the GAPS diet, we are detoxing out actually in the foods that we're eating. Our body is always detoxing, right? Like that's just a thing that's going on in our bodies. So it doesn't mean that we are detoxing when we actually do a detox or, an official detox or something like that. So detoxing is super important for our bodies to be continually doing. And so we can support our bodies in eating liver, which we're huge proponents of, to help our bodies detox or to help build up the liver again. I love the liver cells regenerate after 21 days. And so we can we're constantly replacing, our liver is constantly regenerating. And I'm talking about the liver so much because it's our major detox organ here. So we can be constantly replacing and building up with really healthy cells, our liver. So eating liver, and then doing other kind of enhancing practices like doing detox baths, which would be Epsom salt baths or apple cider vinegar, or there's actually so many. So we generally rotate with apple cider vinegar and baking soda and Epsom salt, but also different poultice kind of baths, seaweed baths. There's a lot of different ways that we can do that. Enemas is a huge encourager of detox, helping with congestion, helping anything that our liver is holding on to. A lot of times if people are having issues with a cycle, a menstrual cycle, or hormonal issues in particular, doing enemas to actually relieve that and help process those out, retained hormones, is actually really, really helpful and soothing and just really nourishing for our body to do enemas to help detox. Oil pulling and brushing, and there's so many other different ways. Amy, were you going to say something else about that? Were you thinking something else in particular about detox?
Just on the other side of liver support, feeding the liver, but beet kvass, which is both a ferment and a cleanser, really helps the liver. It does that little bit of liver flushing every day. So that was all I was going to jump in and say. My 2 favorite ferments. Oh, I need to say 3 because I need to add milk kefir in there now, or milk kefir. But sauerkraut, because high vitamin C, and most people understand it. It's not scary. Number 2, beet kvass, because it is so good for the liver to cleanse. And number 3 is the milk kefir or kefir, which is really, really helpful for microbes. There's a great book about it, which we don't have time to talk about, but Dr. Becky Plotner wrote a book about commercial probiotics versus fermented foods, and she talks about that, and it's pretty amazing. The studies showing how getting your flora, getting milk kefir flora in your body, what kind of things it relieves. So that was all. That was not all I was going to say. That's more than I was going to say, but there you go.
And I'll say, just along the fermented lines, with my kids, they love basically their snacks are fermented carrots or fermented, any kind of spears, anything that you can ferment in like a spear shape. And I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And they just love them. My son will just be begging. He'll be like, more for those. So those are really handy just as far as snacks that you would, and they can be a really fast ferment too. I mean, it can be, 3 to 7 days and you have a fermented snack. So
yeah. Okay. So we did fermenting, really solidifying that gut flora. We did healing and feeding foods. And then the last thing is supporting the detox, which we've kind of talked about, but you want to round us out on that?
Yeah.
Okay, there you're back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, basically I feel like I talked about that, but as far as even being conscious, I think a big component of detoxing is even being conscious of everything that you're doing too. It can be really easy to get on a checklist. I actually have a sticker chart for my daughter right now, which is fine. It helps, right? Like it helps get all the things in. But just being really cognizant of everything that you're doing, and listening to your body and learning to be intuitive with what your body needs at the time, I think is really helpful. And that actually does help with the detox process as well. You can try to just check mark everything and be doing everything perfectly and come to some like plateau kind of things too. And so it can be really helpful just to take a step back, take some deep breaths, think about what you're doing, think about why you're doing it, be thankful for your body, thankful for the parts that are working, thankful for the parts that aren't working because they're trying to work, and they're working with you. And that's really going to be instrumental in your whole healing process as well. So yeah, a big component is
that's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point.
Like stress, because I think especially with doing a protocol, it can be really easy to just stress over things. And especially as a mom, I see this and like, you have to eat this much stock, you have to eat this much, and trying to kind of get in this almost force feeding. They know the right things to do. They know the foods that are going to help their kids. But causing a stressful environment can actually downplay or degrade some of the really good things that you're doing. So for kids and adults, really important to just find a stress-free environment, make it as fun as you can, having the foods. Eating the same thing over and over for a week or two isn't the most fun, but you can make it more fun, and just, laugh about it and have a more jovial, mindset as you're going into it. So that's important.
In our last couple of minutes, do you want to talk about those other things, the stressors? So you're mentioning stress, but you had mentioned earlier there were some other, environmental things that can really hinder our healing.
Yeah. Well, I think this is something that I think this past year with so many people working at home has changed things, some for good, some not good, right? So I used to hear a lot of people talking about stress with a commute and stress with being in the office and stress with being away from the family and that kind of stress. Just something in our minds. Stress is a very physiologic thing that goes on in our bodies. It increases different hormones. The liver has to work extra hard to process out these hormones. It's a really, it directly can cause more permeability to the gut lining. So they see when there's increase in cortisol and different hormones that are habitually raised, we'll see more intestinal permeability. Yeah. And so I think actually some people have been able to find in this last year less stress, less external kind of work type stressors. Obviously some people have issues with family or whatever it is, that there has been more stress, or even just being around your family more. But that's a big thing that is also really important, just as far as you can on, whether that is and
you keep cutting out. That's been 3 times in like 30 seconds.
Oh no. Well, maybe you can talk about stress and stressors and how to relieve. And I was going to talk about increasing stomach acid levels by like deep breathing kind of stuff too. So.
Yeah. So there's a lot of vagal things, and Holly's more of an expert, so it's a bummer that her video is popping up. We'll just do another video about it or something just about that, because that would be great to talk through. But looking at the environment, looking at what is your light situation, what is your family situation, what are the concepts? It's not what I meant. What are you talking about at the dinner table? Is this a time for everyone to air their grumpy days, or they're already on edge with each other, or is this a time to be celebrating and peaceful? An old book that I have, it talks about that the person who brings a sour temper to the table should be sent to the room in shame, basically. And I love that, just very firmly, strongly 1904, good job book, of like, no, this is not tolerant. This is not conducive to good digestion. And I think we really need to get back to that. Not that we're shaming people, but plan it. Plan to care for each other and hear about bad days, and then put on some nice music and eat some food, right? Go on a walk and then come back and eat, things like that. So I think that we can be conscious in that. How fast are we doing? We know TV and people have TV or not, but that does create stressors to our body. The EMFs around us, and some people are more sensitive than others, but that's going to create a stressor. What is the environment? How fast are you? Are you feeding your kids or yourself in the car? That was a big dagger to my heart when Dr. Natasha said, sitting down while you're driving does not count to sitting down for eating. And I was like, oh, okay. I will go ahead and make sure that I am eating at the table as much as I can. So looking at that, looking at what environment, not only are you in all day, but also what are you in for meal times. So that would be the thing that I would say. I'm going to take Holly off until I see that she's back in streaming capacity here. So so all of that is really looking at stressors of the body, stressors of the mind, stressors of the spirit, lights, bright lights, flashing lights, artificial colors in TV shows, all that kind of stuff is really a challenge to our bodies. So I'm going to go ahead and just close this up. I'm so sad Holly's not here to say goodbye. Maybe she'll be able to join us for this last minute, but we're right at an hour. We're trying to keep these shorter. I know an hour is still a long time. And thank you for hanging in if you came all the way to this. Hopefully this was helpful. If you would like more personal help or information, you can make an appointment with our clinic with Holly or I, but Holly's really a great resource. Obviously, you heard all the things that she did. Hello, welcome back.
Hi.
Goodbye. So I'm glad you're back to say goodbye. So if you want to get in touch with our clinic, make an appointment with one of our practitioners right now. That's Holly Rye, and it's really just Holly right now because I'm pretty booked. But that is great. And depending on when you're watching this, maybe years down the line, we hope to have more. So make an appointment with us if you want personal help or ideas. But hopefully this is a helpful thing to get you started to understand what's going on in your body, to feel empowered that you can change it. So any final words, Holly? Oh, nope, she is off again. Okay, I am so glad to have you all here. I'm so glad to have Holly here. I know she loved being here as well and would love to say goodbye. And I will talk to all of you at our next class.